What's going on, everyone? I am just a typical, average American here today to react to a video by TLDR News Global called The Collapse of American Soft Power. So, in other words, America's influence, the American reputation, and America's power is all declining. And honestly, I think in our heart of hearts, a lot of Americans do realize that this is happening, even if we don't like to admit it. But I think it's very important for us Americans to listen and talk about this kind of stuff, not like pretend it doesn't exist. How the rest of the world views us, it's important to know about. So let's take a look at this.
So let's just start by looking at the relevant data. In that report we mentioned in the intro, respondents across a number of countries were asked to say whether or not they viewed certain other countries positively or negatively to create a net approval score. On this metric, the most popular countries in the world at the moment are Switzerland, Singapore, Qatar, Canada, and Japan.
Wow, this is fascinating. So this isn't even like an opinion anymore. You hear on the internet from different places and social media, you see a lot of stuff where like people from other countries, it's pretty obvious, like a lot of people aren't very happy with Americans and the United States and our government, for a lot of very legitimate reasons, to be honest. But this isn't even like emotional or opinions. This is data. Like they literally polled lots and lots of people around the world to create like a data set around who are the most popular countries, who are the least popular countries, which I think we're about to get to. I'm a little, I can't even say I'm nervous because I think I know what that's going to say. But it's interesting to see like what some of the most popular countries are, like Switzerland and Canada. I guess that kind of makes sense.
Most countries enjoy a net positive approval rating. That is, more people across the world see them positively rather than negatively.
Right.
But a handful of countries have a net negative approval rating. Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Argentina all have a slightly negative rating of -1.
Okay.
Russia, Iraq, and Hungary all have a net negative rating of around -10. And
Okay.
Belarus, Israel, and Iran all have net negative ratings of over -20.
Wow.
Making them the least popular countries in the world.
Oh, okay. Okay. So we've seen the most popular and the least popular, and the United States hasn't even been brought up yet. Is there any chance we're like in a an extra tier, like above popular? We're super popular, right? is that the surprise here? That we're in our own league of our own? Yeah, maybe in like the amount of people who are fed up with us now. Oh boy.
Anyway, what makes this list particularly interesting is that, for the first time ever, the US also registered a net negative approval rating, coming in at -5.
Wow. You know what I am like actually the most shocked about here? Not that we have like a net disapproval rating. I'm most shocked that this is the first time ever that we have a negative rating. It's actually never happened before, I think is what he just said. That's cool. we, but given everything that, all the policies and rhetoric that the U.S. government has been doing, Donald Trump and all of that stuff, this would be the time. It makes sense. That's what it took. We are officially in the red. More people around the world don't like America than like it. And that's not a good feeling at all.
Not only is this the US's lowest score ever, it also puts the US well below its superpower rival, China, which currently enjoys a net approval rating of plus 14.
Wow.
Furthermore, the vast majority of countries surveyed view China more positively than the US.
Wow. Oh my God. I think a lot more Americans need to watch this type of stuff. I say that a lot. 'Cause you better believe this is not the information that we are getting told on American news and media and even online, even independent sources don't really talk about this kind of thing. I think a lot of Americans would be kind of shocked to actually see it laid out so bluntly. Like, we're less popular than China. And for the first time in our country's history, we have a net disapproval, dislike, negative approval rating.
Interestingly, other democracies, who have historically been pretty friendly towards the US, are now more likely to view the US negatively, while authoritarian regimes generally view America more favorably. There's also a stark geographic divide. America.
Oh my God, what did he, wait, what did he, oh my God, what is this picture? Why are we so close? Why are we so close to his face? We can see every pore in Trump's skin. This is too, okay.
View America more favorably.
Okay. I got kind of sidetracked because they had the most high definition image of Trump's nose that I've ever seen. Listen to what he just said here.
Who have historically been
hold on.
More positively than the US.
Here.
Interestingly, other democracies, who have historically been pretty friendly towards the US, are now more likely to view the US negatively, while authoritarian regimes generally view America more favorably.
People that America likes and that we want to emulate and be like and do business with, those countries dislike us more. Authoritarian countries that we maybe don't want to emulate, or those are the countries that actually like us more now.
There's also a stark geographic divide. America is viewed overwhelmingly negatively in Europe and the Middle East, but overwhelmingly positively in sub-Saharan Africa. This is a remarkable reversal. Since at least the 2010s, international opinion towards China has been generally pretty negative, while the US has historically been one of the more positively perceived countries on the world stage.
Right.
Only last year, the same poll gave the US a net approval rating of plus 22, well above China on plus 5.
Right. There's a lot of I don't know, negativity towards Americans and some of our culture and some of the stuff we do, but some of that I think is really just almost in a brotherly ribbing kind of way. Some of it is legitimate, but for the longest time it was just those Americans, what are they doing kind of attitude. And America actually had a realistically with a decent reputation on the global stage, despite how we may act sometimes. Now it's given all, let's be honest, I think the thing we're talking about most is the tariffs, and so far Trump's second term as president is really what has kickstarted this whole downtrend, this whole decline of America in the eyes of the world. Yeah. Geez. It's, yeah. I'm almost kind of speechless because, like I said, not the kind of stuff people really like to talk about here in the United States. And I think more Americans should really kind of realize that this is all happening literally this year, right now. The data's out. People are more unhappy with us than ever before.
Other surveys have found similar things recently. An Ipsos poll carried out earlier this year across 29 countries, for instance, found that only 46% of respondents thought the US would have an overall positive influence on world affairs.
Wow.
The lowest score ever recorded,
wow.
and down from 59%, who said the same in October of last year. with declines in 26 of the 29 countries surveyed, and especially steep declines in Canada, South Korea, and Europe. So, what's going on? Well, obviously, some of this is down to Trump, who's uniquely unpopular internationally.
Yeah.
According to the Democracy Perceptions Index, Trump's international net approval rating stands at -30, behind not only Xi, who enjoys a net approval rating of +2, but even Russian President Vladimir Putin, who sits at -17.
Yeah, I think for like the first time, Trump finally said something critical or negative of Russia and Putin, just like last week or something. Like, people have been just like dying and waiting, people literally dying around the world. But what I mean is dying to hear Trump say something critical of Russia. It was really disturbing, and that he was not. And finally, he kind of did the other week, so that's something. Yeah, my God. What else here?
Declines in Canada, South Korea, and Europe. So, what's going on? Well, obviously, some of this is down to Trump, who's uniquely unpopular internationally. According to the...
Oh, yes. I remember what I was going to say here about him being uniquely unpopular internationally. It must be so annoying for a lot of countries around the world, because Trump is the American politics, the American mind, the American culture is so not concerned with the rest of the world and how we affect the rest of the world. So if I'm trying to explain, like, to a European or someone out there who just doesn't get why does America keep electing Donald Trump, I think it's because it has absolutely zero to do with how he will affect the rest of the world. Americans literally only elect Donald Trump because of what they perceive he can change here in the United States. Whether or not he can actually do those changes, whether or not he is a net positive on the United States or does anything good. Sure, that's like that's a whole different debate. That's a whole different discussion. I'm not even talking about that. I'm just saying, like, how, if I'm trying to help you understand why does America elect him, literally because they think he's a big middle finger, like an FU to the status quo in America, and slight majority of Americans thought the United States was headed down a bad track and wanted to change. And there were a lot of immigration policies and certain things as well that were really big topics in the last election, that he happened to be on the correct side of some of those things. Yeah, but it's obvious the rest of the planet really doesn't care for him at all.
The Democracy Perceptions Index, Trump's international net approval rating stands at -30, behind not only Xi, who enjoys a net approval rating of +2, but even Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Oh, and to be clear, I think now, if we're talking about now, I think Trump rightfully has a very bad approval rating here in the United States, because it's hard to even name something positive that he's done for the United States in this second term. It's really hard to name it. So his approval rating has absolutely tanked here in America, that's for sure.
Who sits at -17. This would also explain why America's image has been the worst damaged in Europe. After all, Trump has been far less friendly to Europe than Biden was, threatening to invade Greenland/Denmark, abandoning Ukraine, and frequently attacking what he sees as Europe's unfair trade practices. This speaks to the stark regional disparities at play here. Trump is...
I have made videos talking about the tariffs and stuff. Don't even get me started on the tariffs against the U.S. tariffs against the planet Earth. Don't even get me started on that.
Super unpopular in Europe and the Middle East, but enjoys a net positive approval rating in sub-Saharan Africa.
Really?
On the other hand, she is pretty unpopular in Europe, but very popular in both the Middle East and sub-Saharan Africa.
Really?
However, while Trump might have accelerated things, America's global standing has been trending downwards for some time now. America's global image obviously suffered in Trump's first term, although not quite as much as it is right now.
Yeah.
And while there was somewhat of a recovery under Biden, global opinion towards the US still soured towards the end of his term, and never returned to the heady highs we saw under Obama.
No. I'm not surprised that the American image for the rest of the world was at like all-time highs during Obama.
This is for a variety of reasons, but perhaps fundamentally because constant political dysfunction means America is no longer seen as the beacon of democracy it once was.
Yeah.
We're not trying to have a go at the US here, by the way. Americans themselves broadly agree with this sentiment.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't take any offense to any of this. As a matter of fact, it's a very good thing to have these types of discussions. I'm grateful for it. And they're not even like being mean about it. They're literally just talking about the polls and the statistics and like just things that are happening. Like it's just facts.
And their faith in all America's major institutions, especially Congress, has been declining for the past few decades.
Yeah, Americans aren't even happy about this.
Interestingly, that Ipsos poll we mentioned a second ago also found that 63% of Americans thought the US would have a positive influence on the world, the lowest figure ever recorded by quite some margin, and a testament to the lack of faith many Americans currently have in their own country.
Yeah.
So, on to the last part of this video. Does this decline in America's global reputation actually matter?
Does America's decline in our reputation matter? My first instinct is to say yes. How does it matter? Like tangibly, how does it matter? Besides people just being like, I don't like America. Well, less people are traveling to the United States, right? So it's hurting us financially. People don't want to do business or make trade deals with America. That's hurting us financially. A lot of it is financial damage to America, but the damage to our reputation, like, that's something you can't even quantify with money. Like, the damage this is doing just to the American brand, if you want to say it like that. It's just so bad for us.
Well, there are sort of two competing schools of thought here. On the one hand, you've got politicians like Trump, who seem to think that soft power, often defined as the ability to co-opt rather than coerce, doesn't really matter as long as you've still got hard power. In other words, the ability to force other countries into doing what you want via, say, tariffs or military action.
Okay, so the decline of our Sure, if we're talking about like reputation does equal power and influence. Just the United States' ability to manipulate the world and the future in the way that we want to, for lack of a better way to say that.
Trump and co. would argue that previous administrations overestimated the efficacy of America's soft power, and, in failing to convince other countries to do America's bidding, allowed the US to get ripped off, to use Trump's preferred turn of phrase. Advocates of soft power, on the other hand, would argue that soft power not only brings intangible benefits, but also that it reinforces hard power in certain ways. Soft power is what allows countries to attract the world's best and brightest, as the US has done historically.
That's true.
This has been great for the US, and high-skilled immigration has both driven America's impressive economic growth and helped offset the demographic pressures afflicting most developed countries.
That's true. I didn't think of that. America's reputation has allowed it to be so successful in attracting the world's top talent, the world's most successful, most brilliant people. A lot of people come here and work here and contribute to America because they did view it as a desirable place to be. And if we start losing that, which we are losing it, that's... The ramifications of that are just horrible.
How other people see the US also affects what sort of governments they elect, and the decline in America's global standing will make them more likely to elect governments willing to resist American coercion.
Right.
We've already seen this in both Canada and Australia, where more left-wing candidates who promise to take a stronger stance against Trump triumphed in the polls.
I see.
Advocates of soft power would also probably argue that the decline in America's global image matters more now that it's been accompanied by a rise in China's global popularity. For anyone who's worried about America being usurped by a rising China, and this is pretty much a bipartisan anxiety in Washington at the moment, the fact that global opinion is turning towards Beijing should be a cause for concern, especially given Trump is currently trying to force countries to choose between the two superpowers.
Oh, jeez. Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, I don't think that's going to work out how we want it to work out.
This is a complex and nuanced story, though, and as such, there's plenty more to read about this online.
Okay, is that it? I think that's it. They're just talking about their newsletter now or whatever. Amazing channel, TLDR News. Like, they make so much great stuff that helps me understand the rest of the world, and in this case, how the world perceives America. And I was expecting this video to not be pleasant for me, and it wasn't. But it's so valuable to be aware of this types of stuff, especially for us Americans who historically we are just not aware of what's happening in the rest of the world and how the world perceives us. And is so for that, I'm really glad I took a look at this. It's not looking great for the United States right now. As for the tariff policies and stuff, right now, the tariffs keep first we threaten tariffs, then we take it away, then we threaten tariffs again, take it away. Oh, just China, take it away. 10% to everybody. No, let's pause for 3 months. It's just a bunch of like nonsense at this point. Like, I'm not even sure where the tariffs are at this moment. Like, who's even keeping track? It's just so crazy. And I think a lot of Americans are getting like fatigue of even keeping up with that. It's so annoying. So even if the whole tariff thing and the trade wars come to some kind of conclusion by some miracle, the damage to the American reputation is permanent. Like, it doesn't even matter at this point if the trade stuff gets resolved. Like, this is just the damage to the American reputation. Like I was saying, it's just you can't even quantify it. It's so bad what's happened. Yeah, but good to be aware for what that's worth. So anyway, if you enjoyed this, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment with your thoughts on the collapse of American power, the collapse of the American influence and reputation and all of that. And that'd be really interesting to hear about, especially for you non-Americans out there. Be very good to hear about. And if you're interested in more videos like this, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.